everyone, it's Linda from LyndaCreates, and I have sort of a Americana project for the 4th of July. I thought I'd do something fun, but I'm doing it a little differently as well. Some of you may know I started doing projects called Stitch Your Stamps, and that is where you take your paper crafting stamps that you would make cards or something like that, and you stamp it onto fabric and then you stitch into it. So you use it sort of the outline to design your or color with your embroidery floss or yarns or whatever you want to. Well, I thought, why can't you do something with dies, right? I mean, in a similar idea. So what this project is going to be is a Quilt Your Dies. The other was Stitch Your Stamps, so why not Quilt Your Dies? So this is what I did first. In my stash, I recently found a little collection of red, cream, and blue fabric, and they all seem to work together so nicely that I wanted to make something with it. But they were so small. I think like the smallest piece, this is only about 2 inches by, what is it, 2.5 inches. So what can you do with that, right? So I thought, why can't you quilt your dies? So this is one of the shapes from my classic squares dies that I designed for iCrafter. And it's just a series of squares at different sizes. But you can use any square dies you have as long as it gives you the size you need. So this fit the smallest size possible in there. So I'm going to use this as my die to cut these pieces. But with fabric, you always have to think about the fraying, the edges kind of coming loose. Now, I'm going to solve that by applying Wonder Under onto the fabric, and then I'm going to die cut it. The Wonder Under is by Pellon, and it's just a fusible web, and I suggest finding the thinnest, it doesn't have to be Pellon, but the thinnest fusible web you can find, because you're going to want to stitch through it, and so you want it thin. And then if you have these little pieces, you don't have to turn the edges. You can just die cut it and use it. So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to show you, my concept of how to do a quilt your die project. So let me go ahead. I have the iron heating up, and I will be right back. I cut a piece of my Wonder Under ready to go, and I'm going to see how many I can attach. Now, the thing you want to watch for is that if you have a lot of excess, it will make your ironing board and your iron sticky. So you kind of want to avoid that. I'm going to trim this down because, and this is really a silly reason, is that I have a piece of parchment paper and I just tore off a smaller piece. So I don't think all of this is going to fit, but I want to fit as much as I can. So you want the parchment paper, I know, it's really silly. I could have easily done a bigger piece, but I didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to attach these 3 pieces right now. And it's really simple. You just place the Wonder Under with the sticky side up. And it's just like if you were to apply double stick tape. One side has a carrier sheet and the other side has the sticky part. So you want to do it with the carrier sheet and still on the fabric. Okay, Okay, so you can see it was kind of sticky. I'm going to do these two pieces next. So, recommendation, don't necessarily scrimp on the parchment paper. Really no need to. It's relatively cheap. So I have everything on adhered to the under, and I'm just going to cut them apart. So now I can die cut them, and I pulled out my Sizzix Big Shot machine. You can use any die cutting machine that cuts thin metal dies. I'm going to, let me do it this way. I have one of the pieces, and the thing is, oh, and this is the die. It's just a square. The thing is, when you use something with straight edges like this, you want to turn it at an angle. It just makes for a cleaner cut, and you have to remember here too, we're cutting through a layer of fabric, of the Wonder Under adhesive, and the backing paper. So it's a little, we're going to be cutting it a few more extra times than normal, than if you're just cutting paper. Also, since fabric has a grain like a weave, you want to stay as close to the straight line of the weave as possible when you cut. And I'm going to do it, I did some testing, and about to do some extra cutting. Let's see, I did, this is 6 times through, 7, 8 times through. So there you have your piece, your first cut. I'm just going to continue doing that, and especially when you have something that has straight lines like this, you also want to try to cut it as straight as possible, and just hold it down like that, and then I will finish cutting all the smaller pieces first. Okay, so again, a few extra cuts never hurt. Let me show you how to do a long piece. So I want it twice as long as the other ones. Now here's a little trick that you can do, is because it has a backing sheet on it, you want to remove the backing if you can. Okay, so now you just have, you can't see it, but the one under is on there, and you're just removing the carrier sheet, and then you want to fold it in half with the sticky side or the Wonder Under facing up and down, or so they're not stuck together basically. And you fold it in half like that. And if you look at a die, if you're not familiar with die cutting, the dies have a little raised edge. They're not sharp, it's just a raised edge, and it's through pressure of pressing that edge down onto whatever paper or whatever you're cutting onto the hard plastic that you get the cut. So on a square, of course, you have a blade, we call them blades, all the way around, but now you don't want to cut the folded edge. So when you lay it on there, you line it up so that the blade, I'll bring it in closer. So the fold is right there, along here, and the blade is overlapping so it's off of the fold. So when you cut this, you will have a longer piece. So let me show you how this works. Now you want to carefully lay down, you don't want that top piece to move. Okay. And now this time you're cutting through even more, and I didn't angle it, so I'll have to, I should have angled it like I told you about. cut through, and it didn't cut that fold. So I'm going to continue cutting all the other pieces. I'll come back when I'm done. I now have it lined up on a piece of muslin, the backing, and because I can see the grid behind it, I have it fairly closely lined up with the grid, and you can see how everything is kind of fits rather nicely. This isn't, I'm going to adjust it as I iron it. My iron's heating up right now because the whole trick is to make it look like it is stitched together. So I'm going to do one piece at a time. I think I'm going to be doing a left-handed iron again. So remember, it has the Wonder Under on the back side, which is the sticky part that's heat activated. So I'm just lightly doing it to tack it in place. And as I'm doing it as well, I'm lining it up on the left-hand side along the piece that I already have down, and also checking to see that I like the way the pattern's flowing. Again, because you have the Wonder Under, you don't have the fraying on the edges, which gives it a very nice, clean look. Making sure everything's straight. And also, if you have similar fabrics, you could do some of it horizontal and some of it vertical. We have our little kind of a mini quilt, just like that, just boom, done in a matter of minutes. On the backing, I have a little extra on the right hand side because I do plan to put this on the left hand page in my stitch notebook, so I left a little extra there. I do want to, don't know if this is going to work. I am trying to decide if I'm going to do a border with this blue, which doesn't match exactly, or this red, which is fairly close, and oh, you can't see that. It's fairly close, and it has some blue in it. It's very bold, and I have a lot of it. Maybe I need to do a bold edge on that, bright red. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to do some stitching on this next before I do any edging. So that's going to be the little more the quilting part of it. Let me go do that, and I will be back and show you what I'm going to do. Now that I have everything stuck down in place, I decided to pull out some floss and start doing some crazy quilting stitches to hold everything down, but in a very tiny scale to kind of match the size of the mini quilt. So I actually have it upside down, so like this. And so I started with the herringbone stitch here. You can see that right there. But I'm going to try to use colors that contrast with the fabric. that I'm stitching on. So, for example, in this long stitch, I'll do blue because there's not as much blue. Just kind of colors that contrast and stand out. I'm using three strands of floss. What I'm doing is by laying the thread over it here, I can make it at a 90-degree angle. So basically I can see where it's going to come out. So along this row, I'm doing a blanket stitch, but I'm doing it in a zigzag pattern. So sometime every other one it'll go from the top or from the bottom. So I just came up from the bottom there. That might be the top. Yes, that's from the top. So now I'll come in from the bottom. And it's just a simple blanket stitch, but it's just going in two different directions. And finish off that stitch. Okay. I'm going to do, well, we'll see how this goes. My thinking is to do a double lazy daisy stitch. So coming down here, I'm doing a feather stitch. I'm aligning the right hand side of this next stitch with the one across from it, and then I'm coming in a little bit on the same side. So I'm not coming down the exact center. Coming a little bit to the left side in that one. Coming in a little bit right of center on this one. So I'm just going back and forth. I could just end this coming straight down right there on the edge. I've added a lot of stitching so far. I still have a ton more to do, but I did some blanket stitch right there, more of the feather stitching there, and then I did 2 rows of running stitches here, and I like the way that looked. It looks more quilt-like. These look like crazy quilt stitches, but this looks like an actual quilting stitch. Start on this edge, and I'm just going to do a running stitch on this side because you're not going to see the stitch very well anyway. So it's just really to hold the fabric down. Okay, and now that I'm at this end here, I'm going to do not too large, but a lazy daisy stitch. And I want to do it into the dark blue because it added a lot more contrast in there. So here is the last stitch notebook page that I did, and I have it pinned on the placement page, but I'm going to attach this 4th of July mini quilt kind of thing on the back side, or back page. So what I have to do is, I'm going to leave it pinned to the carrier page, which is the fabric, the base fabric that I'm working with. Okay, so it's pinned to the base fabric. This is the base fabric right here, and this is the binder that I'm using. I'm going to set the binder aside, and if I flip open, so I can flip it open, and what I could show you here is that I pinned it in place, the back side in place, and I need to do it a little bit better because I had it folded, but you could see where this is going to be the back side, this is going to be the front side, or the right hand page, left hand page. So now what I need to do, and I don't need the iron just yet, is to make sure it all lays flat. So, and all I have are the edges pinned or folded under. They're not sewn at all. So let me go ahead, and when I pinned it or folded it, when I folded under that piece, I kind of eyeballed it to be the size I wanted. So it's not exact yet. Okay. So, okay, so I have this left side pretty good. Now I need to do the top, and I'm just kind of matching it up to the carrier, what I'll call the carrier page under there. Okay, and then the bottom is pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to do this side. What I want to do is, because I will stitch these pages together before I insert it into the binder, and it's a little awkward because I am doing it on camera, so let me rotate it a little bit, and you can see where the fabric ends, and that is where I need this fabric to end too. This is the side that's going to go into the binder. It'll be underneath here. So there's everything attached to the carrier page. So the next thing I did, and let me show you this, is that I cut strips of the binding fabric, and I cut it at a 1/2 inch width, several strips, and it also has the Wonder Under on the back side. And then I have a piece that is 1.5 inches, and I did that because this is going to go on this side where, oops, let me show you. It's going to go on this side. I wanted it a little cleaner because it's going to fold over like that. So what I did was I made it so that it folds behind this fabric when I'm ready to do that. And again, there's Wonder Under on everything, so I also have my iron heating up, and it really is kind of a I'm kind of showing how you can make a quilt, a faux quilt. I guess that's a good description of it. It's a faux quilt. And it's going to be at a 1/2 inch. I need it to come over a 1/2 inch on this side. So let me put a mark there. It needs to go a 1/2 inch on this side. And I have the backing paper still on this. So I'm going to lay it to line up with the edge of my pattern. The next piece that is going to sit on top of it is going to look like this. So it has a 45-degree angle right there. So once this wraps around, it should be a neat little turn. So if this comes out to right there, and then it wraps behind, let's put some pins in there just to make sure everything stays where it's supposed to. And just to let you know, I cut the 45-degree angle on my quilter's cut and press because it's clearly marked on there. Made it very easy. Now I'm going to need to cut a 1/2 inch there. Before I pin this down, I need to check where the top one will go. So if this ends right there, then this, the bigger piece, needs to cut right there. So now what I need to do is turn this. So now what I have to do is iron this edge. So I'm just going to do it, put this like here. Don't like ironing onto my plastic pins, so I'll try to do it, tack it down. So what I'm doing is avoiding the pins but applying the heat, so that pretty much held in place. I also have it adhering on the back side as well. So I'm showing you what would be a faux quilt. So this would be normally the binding that you would roll over and add onto it, but it's just a piece that's going on top. So I'm not really stitching it down and binding it. But I did cut the corners, so it would look like it's a neat binding. Okay, so what I could do now is to press these two pieces until I get to the edge. So go ahead and do that. Okay. So now I have one side that has the 45-degree angle that I already cut. I couldn't do both because I didn't have the exact measurements yet. So I do know I need to cut this. And now this other side, I don't have any of the angles cut yet. So what you can do when you come to this outer corner, so I just cut those two pieces at the same time, and there we go. Let me do the tacking of this pieces down again. If you tacked it down everything should stay in place until you get a chance to do this nice long hot iron on it. And now I just have this one more side, and this is the wide side that is going to go into the binder edge. Before I attach it into my binder, I could do some stitching on it. I could cut off a little extra on here. In fact, I'll do that right now. Okay, just iron that flat again. I have this stitched down now to the carrier page, the blank sheet page. So this is now what would be at the left-hand page, and this is the right-hand page in the binder. So you can see how it opens up. So it just basically creates the two pages, front and back, and then I have the binder. And before I sew on the binder, pull out the thread that or the embroidery floss to match the green. I just stuffed that in there to make sure I held on to it. And, okay, so now what I could do, so there's two things I have to do. One, the size needs to be 9 3/4 inches. Let's pin that, carefully flipping it over. Let's see if it is 9 3/4 on this side. Yay! Okay, so on the back side, or this new page, I'm going to fold this under so it meets up right there. So I can stitch that. And then on this side, so this side I'm going to do a little differently. I could stitch this on top of the binding. So basically it's a variation. Here I have the binding folded over, and then this side I can put this over the binding, which is also nice and clean, but just stands out a little bit more. But because this is going to be sewn over that, I could do that last. This side, because I'm sewing it over it, I want to do it first. And I think the best thing to do at this point is to first make sure I'm catching everything that I need to catch. So everything, the inside layer of the front page, and then the section of the binding here. Not both sides, just one. Okay. Make sure it's laying flat. So just to show you what layers I have pinned right now, this top panel with the Hawaiian flowers has 2 layers. So it has this textured white and then the backing fabric that I placed it on. So this has 2 layers. And then we have the inside page, the cotton lining, and then I have the binding. So it's 4 layers. So I don't want to catch anything on this other side of the binder. So it's folded back. What I'm going to do is baste it together. And we're going to just continue this stitch along. So I'm just going to stitch down here and finish this row off and have at least the front page attached, and I'll come back and show you how I attach the back page. I am so excited to show the first page completed. This is the front of the page. This is stitched down now. So the first page is done. And now I could start on page 2, which is the back side. And it'll be a little bit different. I'm going to have the binding overlapping part of the art. So I have this lip here, and this is the binding. So now I'm just going to fold it over so it meets up right there. So it'll be something like that. So I'll finish off this edge nice and neat. But again, I'm not going to stitch through to this side. So I have some white thread. And now I'm just going to stitch across here. By pinning it so that it's only on one side, I can put my hand on the inside and ease that stitch through. So I finished sewing up this binding to the page. And so you could see the two different styles of finishing the binding. One where it creates a neat edge using the binding as the edge, and the other using the artwork as the edge, attaching it to the binding. And they both work. The other thing you might want to do, you don't have to, but you can stitch these pages together at the top and bottom if you want. You don't have to. I'm not going to. The thing I like about this is that the artwork is not, either artwork is not permanently attached. So if I want to take this and frame it later, I could unstitch it and stitch it onto canvas to be backed, or same thing with this. So this piece, I used some running stitch, a feather stitch, some lazy daisy stitches, fly stitch, a herringbone stitch, blanket stitch. I think that was it. And then I went around the border with a running stitch. And then I also, it's hard to see, but I did with blue, I did do a running stitch around the whole edge there. So just to show what you can do with a die, you don't have to finish off any seams on this. I just cut these shapes out with the die. I had some Wonder Under fusible backing on it, a very thin weight so that I could stitch through it later. And I made what looks like a little quilt. So I'm going to do a lot more with the Quilt Your Die theme, because there are so many other ideas I have about that, and I wanted definitely to share with everybody how easy it is to die cut fabric with backing, with the fusible backing, and then turn it into art, and then add it. Then I was so happy to add it to my stitch notebook piece, front page, back page. So thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed that, please like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. I'd love to also hear any comments that you have. Keep watching for more Quilt Your Dies projects and Stitch Your Stamp projects. I'm having a blast adding things now to my stitch notebook, which is a continuing project. And please check out my website, LyndaCreates.com. That's Linda with a Y. You can see a little dictionary of these stitches to see how it's done, and see other projects that I've been making. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.